Notnerd Podcast, episode 246, All the Balls.
Welcome to the Notnerd Podcast. I'm Nate Heath, and we are here to help you tech better. Here with me, as always, Mr. Dave Baylor.
Hello there, sir. It's
Hello.
good to see your smiling face today.
Yes, via Zoom. I was thinking about that. I do miss coming to the studio, but I do not miss not having to wear pants to record the podcast. That always, if I would have done that to come to the studio, we probably would have gotten some odd looks and possibly a police presence.
An escort.
Yes.
Yes, I am not wearing pants, but I am wearing shorts, so our listeners at home don't have to be disgusted
Yes.
by the thought of me.
Yes.
With
Just
no
by
clothing
me. Well, let's get right into it. There was a wide variety of tech news going on this week. We are coming in towards the end of August, coming up towards... We've gotten some phone announcements from Samsung and Google, but Apple's should be happening sometime in September. I've seen some rumors, maybe mid-September for the event, and then October for the actual rollout of the new devices. Possibly November for the Pro phones is what one of the rumor guys said, which that will be a long, painful wait. But as you and I were discussing before the podcast, time is all over the place right now, so it will go by in a flash, I'm sure.
Yes, time is relative.
But until we get to the wonderful world of new iPhones, I do have some follow-up. We were just talking about the Felix, the Netflix channel surfing website where you could go and just click a button and watch different things on Netflix. Well, I saw an article this week that Netflix is testing a shuffle button, which, again, I don't know who is wanting to shuffle on Netflix. I mean, there's so much good stuff, and if you pick a show, just watch it, but they're testing it out.
Now, if it would let me shuffle and start from the beginning of the program and not just some random place in the middle,
Well,
then
yes.
I would be more on board with something like that.
And I think this is more of that as opposed to the Felix service. This is something where it would try to, on some magical algorithm, find something that you might be interested in watching and just kind of plop it on, which, might be worth discovering some new content on there.
It's like their version of chat roulette,
Yes.
where you click a button and you never know what's going to be on the other side.
Oh, true. Well, not to dive into that any further, Samsung has, when they announced their new phones a few weeks ago, they did announce their flagship phones that they are now guaranteeing 3 years of Android updates for the phone. So they will get the next 3 versions of Android, which I think is kind of cheating because I don't know if they count this year's version. So like whatever we're on right now, 11, the next one that's coming out in a month or so, they'll probably count that as number 1 and then the next 2 years. But they've expanded that to more of their phone line because it's not just the Galaxy and the Notes and all the top tier $1,000 phones. They have a lot of cheaper models and they're expanding this to some of those. Now, you might be like, oh, that's great. Well, Apple, I mean, what are we at now? 5 years, 6 years on some of the phones where they're still supporting the latest operating system?
Something like that. I don't know exactly. I know that I was updating a 5-year-old computer, which we'll talk about here in a moment, today, and it supports the latest operating system, and it's 5 years old.
Yeah.
So at least on the computer side, it's 5 years. I think it varies on iOS devices, but it generally revolves around a chipset that's in the device.
Yes. And part of the reason Samsung did this is to kind of match the Google's own phones. They only guarantee 3 years of updates. And as we have mentioned many times in the past, the Android system update thing is kind of a mess and just is not great. For most Android phones, you are never going to get an operating system update. And maybe some security updates, which is just not a great experience. I wish they could figure that out a little better.
Yeah, well, Samsung is poised to be the dominant Android phone maker from here on forward. They sell more Android phones than anybody, and I think they're trying to position themselves as the only Android phone manufacturer, although that probably won't happen.
Yes.
But if you're going to go with one, Google is my first choice. Samsung would be second, and then whoever behind.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
It's hard to keep up with all those brands.
HTC, who knows?
Yeah, which ones you can buy in the U.S. and all of that stuff. Well, you found an interesting video that I watched, and a guy kind of took a different perspective than mine for sure when buying Apple products. And he was basically saying, save your money from buying the latest, greatest iPhone and see what you could buy with that $1,000 instead. So he set out to buy an iPad, an iPhone, Apple Watch, and AirPods. So those 4 items for the same price of, say, my phone, the 11 Pro, and he was able to do it. We've talked many times about the low-end entry-level iPad, which is, $329, which you can get cheaper. The AirPods second generation, the ones I just got, if you don't need the wireless charging, which we'll be talking about that later, and you don't need the noise canceling, you can get those. I got mine for, I think it was about $130. The Apple Watch Series 3, which is now soon to be 3 generations old, but still a very great Apple Watch.
And still supported.
Yes. And then the iPhone SE, which is the newest iPhone as we record this, and it starts at $400, I believe. So right in that same price, you can get all of the Apple mobile tech as buying just the top tier phone. So if you would rather have more devices, kind of the complete Apple ecosystem, I think this makes a lot of sense.
So for people who, maybe a younger person, a college-age person, or a young adult who's newly married, who's a super Apple tech fan, and they're like, man, I'm saving up my money. I got to get the new Apple iPhone. I want the one with 19 cameras on it and 60 terabytes of storage. And it's going to cost me $2,000 or whatever. Instead, maybe you should diversify and say, you know what? I just need the entry-level phone. I don't need anything fancy. But look, I can have all these other devices in Apple's ecosystem, and possibly I could be more productive. Possibly I'd be more happy than just buying the flagship version of the phone at the time. So it is hard, but I find myself struggling to justify purchasing a new phone every year, and every 2 years sometimes, like with my iPhone XR, is still going very strong.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's harder and harder to justify. But if I had no other Apple products in my life and I wanted them, I think I could more easily justify spending that money to get 3 or 4 different products that I could use in different ways.
Yeah. I definitely could see the advantage of going with a cheaper phone to add the watch and the AirPods into the picture. I mean, it is just such a better experience having the phone, the watch, and the AirPods. You just have to look at what's most important to you, how much money you have, how much discretionary income to invest, and how valuable these different devices are in your life. If they are going to help you make more money, have a better time, looking at the holistic cost makes a lot of sense on this.
Yeah, I think almost everybody would find themselves to be more productive with a watch, headphones, and a phone than just the phone by itself.
Yes.
So maybe look at that. The new phones are going to be out soon, so I guess we can put it to task.
We can put it to task. And you know what is always on task? Dave's Pro Tip of the Week.
I recently was given an older computer, this 5-year-old computer I was talking about, and a very capable MacBook Air, 8 gigs of RAM, super small, 128 gigabyte hard drive, but to do simple web tasks, run applications, manage your photos and files, take notes. It's a perfect student computer, for example, for those going back to college. You don't need a brand new computer. You just need one that basically connects to the internet. So I took the computer and I go through a process. So I typically boot into the recovery partition, and my process is go into the disk utility, erase the hard drive, and you might be thinking, how can you both be in the boot partition and erase the hard drive? Well, Apple's smart, and they have a way to keep it all separate. So you erase the hard drive, and then you go to the installation section, and you reinstall the operating system. And you may have to download the operating system from the internet to do so, because you just wiped the hard drive where it was saved probably. Sometimes on larger hard drives, it would save a backup of the operating system and you wouldn't have to do so. Anyway, I digress. I was going through my regular process and I don't know what happened, but I turned the computer turned off, or I turned it off or whatever. It would not start up again. I would hold the power button. I plugged the plug in, pressed the power button. I closed the lid. I opened it back up, pressed the power button. I thought I bricked this thing. I'm like, what did I do? Generally, it will just start up with a little flashing icon saying, hey, there's nothing on here. But this would not power on at all. So if this ever happens to you, there are a few things you can do. Now, I will quickly say that there are different startup options. As I mentioned, you can get into the recovery boot mode by holding Command, that's the little cloverleaf icon, and the R button for recovery. If you hold those down and then press the power button, it'll boot into your recovery partition if your computer has one. You can hold down the Option key to get, as expected, an option of boot choices from different drives. You can reset your PRAM, which you may or may not know what that is. It's not important, but it's Option Command PR, Shift to go in the safe mode, N to net boot, Command S to go to single user mode, which I used to use all the time. There's target disk mode, there's verbose mode, there's all these things. You may or may not even know that if you have an F row on your computer, which newer ones don't, but if you held down F12, whatever is in the spinning CD-ROM drive will eject upon boot. So if it's like stuck in there. So there are many boot options. But what helped me, even though I went through all of these, wouldn't even turn on. And so I'm like, I'm going to hold these down, then press power. No, nothing. Well, I finally, after years of experience and realizing that there were other options, my last resort was to reset the SMC. And that stands for the System Management Controller. The interesting thing is you can do this even when the power won't turn on. I don't know how it does it. It's magic. Again, it's Apple. But on my computer, which was an older computer, you simply hold down the Shift, Control, and the Option key, and the power button. Those 4 keys, you just press them all down and you wait like 10 seconds. I mean, it feels like an eternity. You're just waiting and waiting and waiting. And after about 14 seconds, the screen lit up and it started to boot.
Wow.
So an SMC, System Management Controller reset, resurrected this device, allowed it to start up again, and I could resume the process of reinstalling the operating system. Now, a fun fact, this is getting a little advanced, but I just want to share my experience with you at home. So if you run into these hurdles, you know that there are solutions. When it got back to the boot stage, I got this certificate type error. I can't remember it exactly. And it wouldn't go beyond. It said unable to verify, et cetera, et cetera. I'm thinking, what is going on? So I looked it up online, and sure enough, the system clock date that the computer thought it was on was 2017, I believe, and we're in the year 2020.
Oh.
Yeah, and I mean, as of time of recording,
yes.
This podcast is eternal, so people 20, 30 years from now will be listening. But since it was so out of date, Apple said, this computer is too old. You can't install this operating system. And so I updated the date by using Terminal. I won't bore you with the details. And then got it going again.
Nice.
But the jewel in the crown here is the System Management Controller reset. If your computer's doing wonky things, if it's not charging properly, but the battery's fine, if it'll like just turn off and do weird stuff, you may need to reset your SMC. So before you take it into Apple, before you tear your computer apart, just know that there are a couple keyboard startup combinations that you can use to help resurrect a seemingly dead computer.
Very nice. Yes, that is. I know a friend of the show, Todd, has been trying to resurrect his old laptop and has not been having any luck. I don't know if he's tried a SMC reset, but he's having a little different issues. He did post a video in the Facebook group of an insane amount of dust he opened up his laptop. Yeah.
I thought a live cat was living inside
Well,
of the computer.
he did. His cat did go missing a while back, and he did jest that maybe he was going to find him in there. And yes, there was quite a bit of. Also, a good reminder: every once in a while, get some canned air and blow out your computer. It can help it run better, but it did not solve his problem. So the next step is to give it to you, Dave, so you can spend about 50 hours trying to get it working again for him.
I have a couple ideas, and this SMC reset is the first idea that I'm going to have.
Nice. I like it. Well, let's move on to our takes of the week. Just a mere 2 years after hitting the last major milestone, Apple has hit 2 trillion with a T valuation. $2 trillion. We talked that they were the most valuable the other week. It turns out that the other company, Saudi Aramco, they had broken 2 trillion before, but they've kind of dropped since people aren't using oil quite as much this year. But yeah, so 2 trillion. And I just looked. So that was on August 19th. It dipped back down, but they are now already 12.7% of the way to 3 trillion. They are at $2.127 trillion market cap right now.
So this is my advice for young people. And we typically say, do not follow our advice financially. We don't know what we're talking about. I will, however, stick by this. For you young people, this is an example of compound interest, and you have to have money to make money. And once you get to your first million, the next million's easier, et cetera, et cetera. This is the way it works. When you break a certain threshold, your finances just continue to grow and grow and grow. And of course, there's always going to be life events. Your car breaks down, your house burns down, somebody unexpectedly dies or gets hurt or sent to the hospital. So those things, notwithstanding, if you start now as a young person, just saving a little bit, by the time you're an old fart like me, and not quite as old being Nate there, but like me, you'll have millions of dollars.
Yes.
Because of compound interest, and because once you make $10, the $20 is easy with interest investing and doing various things. So your money can grow. Apple is an example. It took them forever to get to 1 trillion. Forever. It took them years, decades. The second trillion, what would you say, less than 2 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. And they're already on their way to almost 12% into their 3rd trillion already at the time of this podcast recording. So save your money.
Yes.
It really grows.
It does. Apple did have a couple announcements this week. They have dropped in the Apple Music world, they dropped the Beats One radio name that they have been using for their radio station they do. And they now have 3 different stations. They have Apple Music One and 2 new stations, Apple Music Hits and Apple Music Country. And they feature exclusive original shows from the world's top music hosts and artists. Now, I don't think I'm currently subscribed to Apple Music. I know I don't have it installed on my phone. We've talked about that a lot. But if you do have Apple Music, and I think maybe you can do these without paying for the music subscription, you can listen to these radio stations. So if you're looking to hear, top DJs and artists and interviews and all that kind of stuff in these different areas, you can check those out.
Cool.
Yes, and they also announced in the Apple TV Plus world, if you have Apple TV Plus, you can add CBS All Access and Showtime for an additional $9.99 per month. Now, most people right now that have Apple TV Plus are in the free trial because they gave you a year if you bought a device since they announced it. So for $10 a month, you could get both the CBS All Access and Showtime added into the Apple TV Plus service.
Which is not a bad deal because separately, those services, I know CBS costs $9.99 just by itself. So to get both, it's not a bad deal.
Yeah.
But of course, you could always add on services through Amazon Prime and other streaming service providers. This is not a new thing. It's just new to Apple, and it's bundled so you can get both channels for a lower price. And I wonder if there's going to be other channels that they're going to offer in the future. I'm
Yeah.
sure they're inking those deals right now.
Yeah, you can only imagine as they try to expand it and have more stuff there. So yeah, Showtime is $10.99, CBS is $9.99, so it's more than half the price. And if you were paying for Apple TV Plus, you would then get all three for $14.99 a month. All three of those services, which
That's pretty good.
yeah, Apple TV Plus, they keep rolling out new shows. I know, at the beginning there was like 5 or 6 shows, but they are expanding that, and there's more variety in the type of shows and everything. So we can only imagine that they will continue to do more of that. And in the anti-Apple world, Fortnite, we were talking about their big fight with Apple, and that whole thing continues. As we record this on August 23rd, they are hosting an anti-Apple tournament. And so what they're doing is having a big tournament within Fortnite, and they're giving away prizes of non-Apple gear, so PlayStations and phones and tablets and all kinds of different stuff that is not iOS devices. And you can also win some other prizes. One is a in-game skin of the evil-looking Apple featured in the video that we talked about last week. So Epic and Fortnite are definitely going all in on this. We're going against Apple thing. They've got a Freefortnite hashtag, and they've taken the Apple rainbow logo and used the Fortnite llama in place of it. So they are not backing down on this and trying to get as much press as they can.
No, and although Apple's not perfect, they're never going to be perfect. They're always going to make mistakes, and they rally behind things that they probably shouldn't rally behind sometimes. And they stick their stake in the ground. They say, we're not going to move until somebody makes us. All that considered, I just more and more disagree with Epic's stand on this. I will be playing Fortnite today and trying to get the free skin, and I will not win a tournament. I will lose.
Oh, don't sell yourself short.
And I will ironically play it on my iPad, which may lose this whole thing here soon. Anyway, I just kind of feel like Epic, either pay your 30% to Apple or take your stuff and go home and just take it off the platform. I mean, I'm trying to bully Apple into changing their policy so that Epic can make more money just leaves such a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, I agree. And also, there was a story this week that thousands of iPhones with Fortnite pre-installed fled eBay. And
who would buy that?
I don't know, but this reminds me of a pro tip when looking at eBay. There is, if you're trying to figure out how much something is worth, you don't want to just look at the listings. I know I've talked about this before, but it's been a while. If you go through the filters, you can click on sold items. So then you're actually seeing devices or things that have actually sold, so you can get a real idea of what people are willing to pay. Now, I scrolled through here, and it looks like maybe a couple phones sold. There was one that showed up as an Apple iPhone 10, 256 gigabyte with Fortnite and exclusive Fortnite account for over $10,000 that it sold for. But
just go buy an Xbox One and play it there. It makes,
or a
this makes
Pixel
no sense.
3A or something like that.
Anything.
Yes. So why? And the next time, if this continues, the next time Fortnite is updated, which they do have their new season starting in just a mere few days, if there's a system update, it's not going to come through on iOS. So this is
it's going to wipe
one
it
of those
out.
silly things that, of course, get some headlines and get some clicks.
Yeah, I cannot see anybody doing this. If $4,300 is the one here in the article, is what they're charging, you could build an awesome gaming PC that can play every game ever for less than that, probably half of that.
Well, yeah.
Anyway,
and
that's crazy.
And most serious Fortniters are playing on a computer or a gaming system anyways. They're not playing on a phone or a tablet. That's where I played, just because I don't have a modern system and it was there and it's easy. But the serious people, I call not news on that one. I don't even know how much we've talked about them in the past, Dave, but QR codes. They started showing up, I don't know when it was, maybe 10 years ago. It's the kind of square barcode that everybody touted that, you just put this on things and then people can just get to whatever you want to link them to.
Including viruses and malware and whatever.
Any of that stuff. Just go put a
inappropriate
random
imagery.
Yes. But in being in marketing, I have used them for different people. Some people will put them on their business cards or on a product, even where if you have instructional videos on your product, you could put a QR code, say, hey, just point your phone at it. You can get to the link, watch the video, whatever it is. But they've kind of been this not very useful thing. Well, one thing that helped them kind of come back into the forefront, and I have experienced this quite a few times, is the social distancing measures and the COVID-19 pandemic, because we are trying to be hands-free with things often. So I've been to several restaurants where they'll just have the QR code on the table. We actually had lunch the other day, and that was the case. And if you don't have a smartphone, you probably shouldn't be going out to eat anyways. And how would you get to the restaurant without the directions? And even another
a
big
map.
Yes. A new big push for QR codes was when Apple built it into their default camera. So to use a QR code on an iPhone now, all you do is open the camera app, point it at the QR code, and a little notification will pop up, say, do you want to open this in Safari? And then there you go. So it's gotten a lot better, because you used to have a special app for it, which that just never works out. Android's had it for a while longer, but I just thought it was interesting talking about even, the picture in the article is looks like a medical staff holding up a QR code so that somebody can get their appointment or their test done or fill out forms. But we all have these supercomputers in our pocket, so even going somewhere where there used to be a touchscreen tablet or something that you would fill out a form, now you just scan it with your phone, fill it out there, and you don't have to touch other people's stuff.
This is so funny. We're so close to having a touchless society.
Yes.
But there are still all these holdovers that I find as I go about the world. They will be like, hey, use Apple Pay to pay for the thing. Oh, we need you to sign the receipt.
Yeah.
So grab a dirty, gross pen that 900 other people have touched, and I'm going to sign the receipt. And I'm just like, why do you need the receipt?
No.
Like, update your accounting software, update your reader. It's just hilarious to me that, and in some, Target, for example, I will throw them under the bus. They implemented a few months ago this where you have to pay for the bags, at least here in Oregon.
Yes.
And they replaced the thin little bags that'll just float on the wind with these heavy-duty, thick plastic bags. So, when you're paying that 5 cents or whatever, you get something substantial. Well, you have to tell the computer how many of those you're using so it can include them in the cost, even if you're using zero.
Yes.
So imagine me. I'm holding my product. I scan the product. I'm not even putting it on the surface of the machine. I double click my phone and use Apple Pay. It's all touchless until I get to that question, and I have to touch the dirty, gross touchscreen and say continue. Come on. You're so close.
I know.
You're so close.
Well, and even like in the Apple stores with the Apple app for a long time, several years, you've been able to go in, you can pick up a product, you can scan, you can pay on your phone, you can leave.
Just
you
walk
never
out.
have to touch anything. And so there is technology. Obviously, Apple has plenty of money to put behind something like that, and probably a lot less stores than Target does, and a lot less cash registers and all of that stuff. But hopefully, just even without COVID-19, just touching things less is a better experience, and probably better for all.
Mm-hmm.
And the other story that I wanted to talk about today, I had never even thought of this. I don't know why it hasn't been discussed in the past, but there's been some people that have done reports on how inefficient wireless charging is. Now, wireless charging has been touted as this great thing. You can just plop your phone down on a charging pad or anything with wireless charging built in. You use it all the time.
All the time.
Yes, but the Eric Ravenscraft, who wrote this article, and I believe iFixit and 10 had done some studies on this, that it is incredibly inefficient when compared to cable charging because it is having to pass the electricity through to the phone. And so he did some testing himself with a Google phone. And he said, in my tests, I found that wireless charging used on average around 47% more power than a cable. Something that had never even crossed my mind, but just with the way it's set up, you're using 47%. So he's kind of leading to the point, and I think these other studies did as well, that if everybody started using wireless charging, it would actually have a pretty big environmental impact with that increase.
I have a point to make.
Yes.
Because this gentleman, Mr. Ravencraft, if that is his real
Yes.
name, I don't believe he's taking the famous Nate Heath's holistic cost into effect. Because how many of us have had to replace our $10 lightning connector cables because we plug them in and out 45 times a day? The grease from your hands erodes the plastic and the heat from the sun and all these things, so they basically crumble after a couple years anyway, not to mention the wear and tear on the connector. There are people out there who have had to either upgrade their phones or send them to Apple to get repaired because the connector has worn out. I would say that if he's going to get a complete picture of the cost of wireless charging, he needs to consider all the peripherals and cables and the hoops and the time that people go through to use it this way. I think partially the reason why my phone has remained in such pristine condition is because I'm not trying to jam it with the cable all the time and hitting the bottom and scratching the screen if I'm not looking properly. I'm not going to use the wrong cable and blow up my phone by overcharging it or something like that. I just think that even considering the more power is very inexpensive compared to purchasing a $10 cable every 6 months.
Yeah.
Even if it's 50% more, it's still kind of a drop in the bucket. Not to mention that the cost of power is continuously going down. So even though we may be wasting it, solar, hydroelectric, other means of wind power production are driving those costs down. So I don't know. I'm a little skeptical of the overall value of calling this out, but it is good to know.
Yes. Yeah. It is. Wireless charging does charge slower in most cases than your typical wired chargers. But yeah, that is a very good counterpoint to this of you have to look at more factors than just the amount of watts used.
Yeah, but it is good to know because for some people that may be a deal breaker.
Yes. Yeah. To each their own. Our security and privacy stories of the week. This first one's just kind of interesting. ProPublica commissioned a study, and they were able to get cell phone data on many cell phones. And what they were looking at is Las Vegas as it opens back up, and then looking where those phones went after they were in Las Vegas. So obviously, Las Vegas is a huge tourist destination. Many people come in, many people leave from all over the country.
And from judging from the picture, many of them aren't wearing much clothing.
Yes, it does get rather warm in Vegas. So from the article, it says, during the 4-day period, about 26,000 devices were identified on the Las Vegas Strip. Some of those same smartphones also showed up in every state on the mainland except Maine. Apparently Maine doesn't go to Vegas in those same 4 days. About 3,700 of the devices were spotted in Southern California in the same 4 days, 2,700 in Arizona, 700 in Phoenix alone, 1,000 in Texas, 800 in Milwaukee, Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland. So on the privacy side, this shows that, this was hopefully completely anonymous data from these two companies, Xmode and Tectonics, but it shows that they were able to pull this information, see how many people are in Vegas, where they were also, so most likely where they're from or where else they travel to, but they were able to get this data, and of course they're looking at it from the COVID-19 perspective as far as just how hard it would be to contact trace these people, because this is interstate travel and some of the contact tracing efforts are just statewide, but a very interesting little piece of information on how easy it was for them to gather this information and just see how quickly people travel.
I thought that in order to do this, you would have to be able to match up the device ID with multiple access points, cellular points. But on Apple devices, don't they prevent advertisers and third parties from seeing your unique device ID and even going so far as to change it occasionally? How are they accomplishing this, and does that tracker thing even work at all?
So,
I mean, there's Android phones as well, of course.
Yes. It says, in compliance with privacy laws, Xmode collects data from smartphone users, mainly using fitness and weather apps that track their location.
Oh boy!
So they are pulling information off that. The data.
Well, we had a story a while back about how all the weather apps were stealing your location data and selling it to third parties. So
yes,
I guess stick with Apple's built-in one if you don't want to be tracked.
It does say here the data represents about 5% of the smartphone users in the United States. Tectonics analyzed the data and visualized it on a map. So, yeah, an interesting one. And more to one of our traditional security and privacy stories. UCSF, University of California at San Francisco, has been dealing, they had a ransomware attack that locked their servers. And this was a very interesting look because, for one, Bloomberg was able to get some of the transcripts from the negotiator or whoever it was from the university and the ransomware attacker, and some of their back and forth trying to haggle on price. And, I believe the original number was $3 million ransom to give them access back to their information. And the person from the university said, well, money's tight right now with everything going on. We could give you $300,000. And the guy said, you can take that and go spend it at McDonald's. We want $3 million. So it went back and forth, and they said something to the effect of, your university brings in $8 billion a year or something like that, so you can pay this. So they went back and forth.
Which is not true.
Yes. So anyways, this is a very interesting look at it. And then some of the wider ranging that we seem to talk about with just about every story, COVID-19. So UCSF is working COVID research. It's where they're putting most of their resources. They're looking at vaccines and treatments and doing all this data analysis. Well, obviously having all their servers locked slows that down. But also there's a lot of this going on where there could be some very valuable data for other companies, other countries looking for this COVID-19 data, which, in my personal opinion, I think they should be sharing it, but I'm not the one that gets paid based on the results of my COVID-19 research. But it's just a interesting take on these ransomwares. There's also all the student data that could have been taken. They did, the hackers, I will say, did present some of the information that they copied off these servers before locking them up. So that's a huge another thing. And as we always talk about, just because they pay the ransom and get their servers unlocked, that doesn't mean that this data doesn't go away. And how do you prove that these people aren't just going to sell all this important data? So it is a complex thing, and I do not wish ransomware on my worst enemy because it is a mess.
I'm telling you, it's a bad thing. And let's say the University here of San Francisco, if they were asked to pay $3 million and the guy settled for $100,000 or something, I would take the remaining money. I'm telling you, I would hire a task force of mercenaries to go find these people and, let's just say, put an end to it.
Yes.
I won't describe the means.
No.
But I mean, governments are going to have to start doing this thing. They're going to have to send in the Navy SEALs into these outfits and just shut them down, because this cannot go on, especially when people's health and livelihoods are at stake. This is incredibly terrible.
Yeah, so I think they did end up settling for 1.14 million, so about 116 Bitcoin, to get their data back and get back to work. And just to think of the poor IT department at UCSF, and having to deal with this stuff and having everybody come at them from every direction. But yeah, What a mess.
Big mess.
And one more security and privacy story of the week. This is one that you found. 235 million profiles scraped from Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube showed up in some, I believe, dark web corners of the internet where, so this isn't, nothing was hacked. There were services that have since been banned from social media where they just went through and scraped all the information from people's profiles, any photos that were public, any of this information to have these massive databases. The one that it looks like this came from was Deep Social, and the Facebook and Instagram banned them in 2018. But yeah, so they just go through these social media sites, gather all this data. It doesn't have, it would have your name, anything in your profile. So like for business profiles, phone numbers, websites. So not any secured data, but just this information, which could be very valuable if you're trying to do phishing attacks or set up fake accounts or do any of that stuff. So it's...
and just remember, just because Facebook and Instagram has blocked third parties from doing this doesn't mean that they don't do it themselves.
Yeah.
Facebook has all this information and they will sell it to the highest bidder without even losing one wink of sleep because they're in it to make money off of you.
Yes, they are. Well, our bonus odd take of the week. I've seen this one float around a couple times, and I finally wanted to bring it up. It's titled The UX of Lego Interface Panels. So UX stands for User Experience, and it's a really well-written article looking at just design and interface. And so these are, but it's based around the computers and the little interface panels for, a control room that Lego has had over the years and the different layouts, and then comparing that to real world, like an airplane controls and, car controls and all these different things. So it was really a fascinating read for me as somebody who designs websites, etc., to look at this user experience stuff and just how different colors or different groupings and all that stuff, but also because Legos.
Lego, of course. I hadn't taken a look at this before. I think maybe I clicked on it quickly, but it's incredible. The website's incredible. The photos are incredible. The idea that Lego has so many unique individual parts, and some of these control panel pieces, I have many of them, and the newer ones I'm not as familiar with, but oh man, it's just it brings back the nostalgia for these old sets.
Yeah.
And seeing some of these control panels.
Yeah, and just the attention to detail there is really cool. So go check that out if you have any interest in design or Legos or just about anything. Click the link in the show notes. And you know what else you're probably interested in? Our picks of the week.
So I thought I'd throw a curveball into you this week, Nate, and I'm going to talk about a video game.
What? Not you.
I know. I'm still evaluating a couple of iOS, how shall we say, click the three bubble, or what are those called?
Yes.
The match 3 games.
Match 3 type games.
I'm evaluating several so that I can talk about them all at once, and I haven't quite completed that. But for the time being, we're going to talk about Balls. And the game we've talked about before is called Balls.
Yes.
And Balls is just a fun word to say.
Yes.
And I'm curious how many times I can say balls in the length of this podcast. But the game Balls is not the game we're going to talk about again today. However, the game is very similar to the game Balls, and this game is called Hold Down. Now, I looked through our past messages and tips and all that good stuff, and I can't recall mentioning Hold Down before.
No.
But how do I describe? Balls was a game, I believe, where you launch the ball from the bottom of the screen. Am I correct? Or was it the top?
Yes.
Okay. Balls is from the bottom, and you bounce up, and you try to break all the balls, whatever. This one goes down, and it's got this cute little animated guy thing that takes you through the journey and talks to you in this squirbly little voice, and the animations, the aesthetics, the visceral feel of pushing around the ball and launching it is all very satisfying. So if you're looking for a Balls type game or a what are the old ones called? Arkanoid,
Brick
and
Breaker.
Breakout,
Yeah, Breakout.
and Pong,
Yes.
those type of games. This is a newer iteration. It's been out for several years, but you can pick it up for $3.99 on iOS. I'm not sure if they have an Android counterpart. I did not look, but it's a relatively popular game. I think it's been featured before in the App Store. But take a look if you're looking for a nice distraction and a new take on a very classic game type. Take a look at Hold Down.
Nice, and I do see it is available on Steam, Nintendo eShop, the App Store, and Google Play. So yes, you can find it on many different platforms, and it does look like a fun one. I've played several of these types of games in the past, but looks like a very unique take on it. I like it. Well, my pick of the week this week is a little bit different, and it is something that my wife heard about from another mom friend, and we purchased one and did it, and then it was just a really cool experience, and it is the Back to the Roots Organic Mushroom Growing Kit. Harvest gourmet oyster mushrooms in 10 days, top gardening gift, holiday gift, and unique gift. So it's the craziest thing. You get this box with a little handle on top, and it's got a little window on the front, and then you just put some water in there, you water it for a couple days, and then after 10 days, well, actually probably after 6 days, the mushrooms start popping out. They're little tiny mushrooms. It's the size of like a quart of milk, the box is, and they have a couple different sizes. There's like a 3-day period where the mushrooms just like triple in size every day. Like within the day, if you sat there long enough, you could probably watch them move. Now, I'm not a huge fan of mushrooms. I don't seek them out in my diet, but I'll enjoy them every once in a while. But for my daughter, she loved this thing. My wife loved it. It was really a lot of fun, and it's pretty reasonably priced. And if you do enjoy mushrooms, you can grow your own organic mushrooms in 10 days in your house. Now, I looked a little bit, and Chelsea was telling me about the company Back to the Roots. Their goal is to, even if you don't have a garden, even if you don't have a backyard, they've designed all these products where you can just grow them, within your house, get them a little bit of fresh air, but you don't have to, have pots and all this stuff. They provide everything. They do some other plants like in a jar, like a mason jar type thing, but they've got all kinds of herbs and tomatoes, which are horrible, but many other things. So I just really, if you're an adult, if you're a kid, if you like mushrooms, if you don't like mushrooms, this is a great project. And after you get your first harvest, you can then turn the little cardboard insert thing around and start over. So we've started our second batch of mushrooms. I did fry them up with some onions, and they were quite delicious. But yeah, just a really cool little project if you're looking to do something different and don't have a lot of space. Check out the Back to the Roots, and especially this mushroom
So how
farm.
many, is this indefinitely then? Can it just go forever?
No, I believe you can just kind of get it a couple times. That if you get to a different area of the inner cardboard thing, that some more will grow. So I don't think you can eternally. Maybe they could create something where it did that, where they would self germinate, whatever we want to call that.
I believe they use spores.
Yes.
Depending. Now, I am not a fan of eating mushrooms, but I'm curious to try different kinds, and I just haven't been brave enough. So we're not a mushroom household here.
Yeah.
But I do subscribe to the mycology subreddit on Reddit. People take fascinating photos. They say, look at the one that I found in the forest, and it's this enormous thing. A popular one is the one called chicken. It's like, it must taste like chicken. I don't know. So again, I'm interested in trying these things, but I'm very scared because typically I am not a fan of mushrooms.
Yes.
But something like this is just cool, even if you just let them grow and throw them away. It's a neat experiment, like a science experiment.
Totally. And they do have the mini kit is $13 on Amazon, and the one that we got is $20, and they run some deals on their website as well. So I'll link to that in the show notes.
That's very, very cool.
Our Ramazan purchase of the week, I actually have a couple pieces of follow-up. The bubble wand thing that we had a few weeks back, that was my mother, and my daughter gives it 3 thumbs up. That she was having so much fun with my dad playing with that thing. It does huge bubbles, like the size of her, and she was able to pop them. So go back and check that one out. And then the bidet, I was confirmed that it was Jared. It was actually Jared's wife that purchased that. And he did give us a brief review, which I will share. There is no heating feature, which makes it for a shockingly refreshing blast of water on your tushy. My experience with it thus far is that the water leaves you cleaner than just with TP. I still use TP, but it's less, and it's a cleaner wipe after, which in turn also causes less issues if any residue isn't fully wiped out, if you get my drift. It's a solid purchase, but he thinks his wife was much more excited than he was on it. So thank you for that, Jared. Hopefully you aren't offended by us sharing that on the podcast. But yeah, so we got the bidet review and the bubble review. So we love hearing from you guys. When you use our links, we talk about it, and then you tell us how it works out. But this week, I actually know who purchased this one because he was complaining in our Facebook group that we had not chosen him for a Ramazan purchase, at least recently. It's the 2 universal typewriter ribbons, 1 black and 1 black-red combo twin spool, 1/2-inch cloth for Royal Smith, Corona, Remington, Hermes, SCM, Swintech typewriters. So this was a friend of the show, Todd.
Yes, and this was a typewriter ribbon? Is that what I'm gathering? Okay.
Yes, and it could only be Todd if it was a typewriter ribbon.
No one else uses a typewriter. For any, maybe if you, again with our social distancing and touchless society, if you have like a triplicate carbon form that's your bank or your car loan or somebody who has to like type it in triplicate or whatever. But still, wow. Well, good for you, Todd. And keeping old technology alive, which is something that I enjoy as well. It's just I typically like technology that has electricity flowing in and out of it.
Yeah, so Dave, what would you pay for 2 universal typewriter ribbons?
Man, they don't make them anymore. These things are probably like $90 a piece, but I'm guessing that would not be a sustainable business practice if they were that much. I'm going to say that 2 of these guys set Todd back $25.
$10 and free shipping on Amazon. $8.90 actually. Sorry about that. $8.90. So it's not on Amazon Prime, but they do have 4.5 stars on 299 ratings. So.
You know what? This might be one of those typewriters that's electronic. Maybe it is a newer typewriter and not the old. You get the thing and the corn cob. Whatever.
We'll have to ask Todd.
Yeah.
It's hard to know with him, but I'm sure we'll hear from him. So thank you, Todd, for using our affiliate link on that. And we love it when all of you do that. Well, it is time to wrap up this episode. We've thrown a lot of tech at you, so now you can get out there and tech better. Man, hold on.
3, 2, 1, clap.
That seemed pretty good. My hands hurt now. I don't do enough clapping anymore because we can't go out in public. My hands are weak.